the moment our fellow geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerf Herder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Christina Yojimbo Henry. You can continue. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
Yes, only two of us showed up.
Welcome, everyone, to our happy show.
We're all here.
We are all here. This is our first episode in December, so we're entering the Christmas season.
Oof. Yeah, we are entering the Christmas season. It's going to be a long month.
What a matchup today. Again, you know, we always say sometimes these things, we have no knowledge going into these. You know, it just sounds like a good idea. These two movies we match up. At some point in Strange World, it was like a eureka moment.
I literally was like mouth open going, Jim is a freaking genius.
No, I don't think I picked that.
You suggested this. You did.
Oh, it was me?
Yeah.
Oh, then I'm a genius. Wow.
Give yourself credit.
Wow. Visually, there are some cues, but yeah, I did not see it coming. I will tell you right now, it has been a very long week. And I watched both these movies yesterday, pretty much back to back. And I went into this movie not really knowing much anything, except for the fact that the handful of trailers that we've seen, and we'll get into it, visually, I'm just like, I am so on board with this.
We could have said that from the trailer, right? Because I think all the really out there moments were given away, unfortunately or not, in the trailer. So there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah. If you saw the trailer, that is.
If you saw the trailer. I watched the trailer because, it wasn't like a spoiler centric kind of a title. But do we have any news before we get into it?
Yeah. Do we want to talk about the fact that we're actually speaking about Strange World, the new Disney movie? Should we mention
Strange Worlds, the Disney film that's out in theaters now, paired with Fantastic Voyage, the 1966 vintage. I hesitate to say classic, but
no, it is vintage. I will tell you right now, I love old school 1966 state of the art.
This is the same time frame where the OG Star Trek was on the airwaves.
Yeah,
so.
It looks like they stole some of their set pieces. Yeah. So, but we'll get in there. We'll get there. We do have a little bit of news. Unfortunately, you just mentioned the trailers. Which normally Jim does not watch. So we will not be talking about Indiana Jones 5, The Dial of Destiny trailer that just dropped, or Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. But they are both dropped this week, and they're both out there if you want to check them out and see what we got coming next year.
Did you guys see the trailer for the new Pixar movie?
Yes.
Elemental?
Yes.
Elemental.
A theatrical release, this means, since there's a trailer out?
It didn't say exclusively.
I assume so. Yeah. So all right. So maybe Disney is waking up.
I don't know. After
they're hearing the complaints,
they may not. They may go right back to streaming after this movie. News. So Legendary Films, who's been putting out this new Godzilla Kong, apparently they are parting ways with Warner Brothers, who's been doing their distributing and co-financing, and they are setting up shop with Sony Pictures, which is kind of interesting because they were with Warner and then they left and went to Universal in 2014, and they went back to Warner in 2019, and now they're going with Sony. The Godzilla and the Dune stuff is still staying with Warner Brothers for now. So it's kind of interesting. I guess it's just a finance thing, but
it's very confusing.
It is very confusing. And I don't really know why they would jump ship, because there's still a partnership with Warner Brothers, like I said, through those other two franchises. I don't know. The only other news I have is that this long gestating Beetlejuice 2.
Right. The one we talked about when we talked about the movie a few months ago.
Apparently, Catherine O'Hara is now officially on board.
Okay.
but we've kind of heard this before with Burton and Keaton and Winona Ryder are all apparently on board as well. I don't know what that means. It could be another 5-6 years. Who knows? But something's percolating. So maybe we'll get a Beetlejuice 2 before everybody becomes too old to do this stuff.
But do we need a Beetlejuice 2? I mean,
Do we need a Beetlejuice?
I feel so
That
often
is,
we just don't need sequels to things. Like one is fine. It's
I
fine.
agree. And I think
The problem is just that Hollywood loves existing IP because there's a built-in audience. And, that's why they keep going back to the well on a lot of these things when maybe they shouldn't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we're going to get into it with this first movie, which is when you have, it's not IP, it's an original story content that maybe, people are less likely to invest in it.
I don't think that's the problem with this movie, but we'll talk about that.
There are a lot of things. I have a checklist.
Well, wait a second. In order to actually let people discover the problems with it, they would have to go see it. And they're not going to see it. And that means
that you have to know that it's in the theater.
I think that was problem number one, because I said last week that I hardly saw any trailers for this. It did not seem to get the usual sort of Disney blanket advertising that a lot of their films normally do.
I almost feel like they don't know what to do with this.
And like I said last week, I think it's the subject matter. I don't think Disney movies that are based around adventures and mostly adult characters really tempt people into the theater.
I agree, because you brought this up last week, which is it does kind of feel like those Disney movies of the early aughts with Treasure Planet and Atlantis.
Well, let's finish talking about the news before we start talking about
that. Well, the only other fair enough. Since we're talking Disney, Jim, do you know that the yet another Alien movie is in development? We know about this.
I think there is always one in the state of development.
Ridley Scott is producing; he is not directing. But this Fede Alvarez is involved as the director. Again, like you just said, do we need another Alien movie? I feel like they don't know what they're doing with this franchise since the first two. And
I would just like them to see them end this trilogy because it ended on a cliffhanger, the last movie. And I think the last movie wasn't great, but I think the third one that they're setting up has the potential, because obviously they were trying to tie it in with the first movie. So I'd like to see where they were going to go with that.
It doesn't sound like this is attached to that in any way, shape, or form, that this is yet.
Well, then, no, I'm not on. I don't care in that case.
No. There's a lot to be said about those Prometheus movies that we have not talked about. But anyways, that is it. That's all I have news-wise, unless anyone else came to the table with.
I have very important news.
Oh, okay.
San Francisco Board of Supervisors is trying to decide if the San Francisco Police Department should be allowed to use robots with deadly force against a suspect. And I just want people to go back and watch a movie that came out in the 80s before they consider this policy proposal.
Are we talking RoboCop or are we talking Runaway?
I'm talking RoboCop.
RoboCop.
Yeah.
Yes, Clarice Bodiger, you're coming with me.
But this is real.
Think about that. That guy died and they still made him come to work.
That's capitalism for you.
That's brutal.
No, this is a real thing. Like, obviously, they don't have, human cyborgs.
It's not cyborgs. That was my big question.
They're still robots, though.
They're robots.
Are they like drones?
They're military grade robots. It's former military equipment that the police department has. And basically, they use them to assess situations, right? They send the robot in and the robot kind of looks around and sees what's going on. And there is a proposal to let these robots use deadly force against a suspect. And this just seems, don't people watch movies?
But are they sentient robots or this radio control
with a gun? I am C-3PO, human cyborg relations. Please put down your weapons.
Because if they're sentient robots, that's like a whole other issue in itself. But or is it like a Voyager, Voyager on Mars kind of a deal where somebody's got a joystick?
how sentient they are. It says they're used to investigate and defuse potential bombs and aid in hostage negotiations. But the idea seems to be that there would be some degree of decision making on the part of the robot. I'm not super clear because I didn't think the technology was there, but
it's still limited to human.
No, what they've done is they've consulted with Doctor Who, and they have a Mechanicom, and he's going to say things like, "Put down the gun," in his microphone.
I listen to a robot. Ed 209, baby. I'm on board. Who's making these robots? I think I need to invest.
I don't know.
This is hardcore.
I saw this and I was like, what? Like, sometimes you see these headlines, you're like, this is NPR, this isn't The Onion, you know?
Yeah.
But it's real.
San Francisco? Is like crime that rampant over there?
I don't think so.
No.
It's a soft open. It's a testing ground.
Wow. Interesting. I think we got to stay on top of this one.
So that was my very important news that I brought to the table.
That. I like
a segue into something called Strange World.
Strange indeed.
That is definitely strange. But as we mentioned, this is the latest Disney film, not Pixar, Disney. And of course, it's theatrical because it's not Pixar. Some people would say.
Yes, exactly.
But the argument is, does this really deserve a theatrical release, especially when compared to the latest Pixar offerings? Director Don Hall, he's got quite a resume going with Disney. Big Hero 6, Moana, Raya, all great movies.
Yeah, all had theatrical runs.
All those movies came up actually in my family's discussion of this film. And right off the top, I just want to say that my husband called this concept art in search of a plot. And I think that really says everything.
I will wholeheartedly agree.
I was afraid of that by watching the trailer, actually. I was like, is there more to it than this? Yeah.
There's a nice message about legacy and family and what you're leaving your kids, but the characters are completely forgettable. You know, we're going to get into why this doesn't work, but visually it is stunning. The world building is very unique, but you're right. It's all right there in the trailer. You see this stuff. So there's really no surprises. It's not a musical. So you don't have anything that even hang these characters' personalities on.
It's mostly adult characters, and there's one teenager character kind of there for the kid element. And also they do have a cute, cuddly character that the marketing, I haven't seen any yet. But
literally someone says, I want to merchandise this. And it's Morph from Treasure Planet. That's what this character is, Splat. It's just a blobby little sidekick that, you know, is there for comedic laughs. Unfortunately, not many people in my theater laughed. And I'm curious because this is a kid film. Did you have people in your theater when you went?
There were 4 kids in our theater and 13 adults. And we went the first
Did you have a
Sunday.
clicker? Like when you buy the
I checked. I counted.
Yes,
because I was cute. First of all, because my brain drifted off, so I might as well count the number of people in the theater.
The heads.
But also, I was curious. I was like, I don't see any kids in this supposed kid film, so I counted, and it was the Sunday of its opening weekend.
Wow.
Which is when you expect.
Yeah.
Kids to be.
Yeah. I just went yesterday, so it was its second Saturday. Not sold out, mind you, but it was a decent crowd, mostly single parents with small kids. When I say small, I'm saying around 4 or 5 years old. So when you get to the umpteenth father-son conversation in this movie, you can hear the kids saying, is this over, you know, or talking about anything but the movie. So the kids really drifted during certain scenes of this. And so did I. I
went yesterday first showing, and there were a fair amount of people in there, and there were kids, there were families, but I had a dad and a young boy who probably was 5 or 6 sitting in front of me. And as soon as I walked in, I heard them whispering, and the dad's like, yeah, you're right. He is here, because they saw me with my Stitch t-shirt on. And so they're like, oh, he must be going to a Disney film.
I thought you were going to say, is that the TMI guy, Dad?
Yeah, imagine that. I know him.
Or alternately, my UPS guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Once I'm out of the Browns, they don't always recognize me. But there was a steady flow of people coming in and out of the theater. So I don't know if people were jumping ship, if they were coming in to check it out. All right, we've heard this movie stinks, so let's go check it out, but we don't want to pay for it. It was a weird, like a flow of people. But I will tell you, there was one very specific scene where this dad became very uncomfortable, and we'll get there. So,
what's funny when you talking about flow is that when we went up to the counter to get our tickets, so right in front of us are 3 teenagers, like 15 years old, who are just like goofing around in the line. And when they get up to the front, I'm like, don't say Strange World. Don't say Strange World. And they all looked at the thing. Oh, what are we seeing again? Oh, yeah, Strange World. And they all buy their tickets separately. I'm like, oh, great. But we get into the theater. They never showed up. So they're buying tickets and going to an R-rated movie.
So they just gave Disney $35.
Yep. I'm sure every kid does that. Why didn't I think to do that when I was a kid?
I know, right? Interesting.
Yeah, but like a 15-year-old, I mean, they don't check at the theater. You know what I mean?
No, it's not like you're a little 4-year-old sitting in your seat.
Yeah. Because I got ID.
Yes. Yeah, I was going to say, right. Yeah. I was going to say, you told the story.
Maybe this Regal is the exception. Maybe through trial and error, they realize they have to buy tickets to something else in order to get into the movie that they want to see.
And what does Regal really care? I mean, there's nothing. It's not Lady Chatterley's Lover, which is on Netflix. You can watch it now, anyways. There's really nothing salacious out there that.
I mean, half the time, because we do buy our tickets in advance, there's like a teenager scanning your stuff in. They're not going to check.
Oh,
your
I know,
ID.
Right? Actually, my guy Joe is probably about 66. He checks my tickets. On a handful of times that my wife comes, they check her bag. Like, what do you think we're sneaking in here? Do you actually plan on watching this?
They always side eye my bag or our bags, but they never actually.
No, they do. They do check. They check Tish's purse. Listen, I've taken some McDonald's cheeseburgers in my pocket of my pants. Walked right in there.
I'd love to continue this train of discussion, but I think we have to start talking about this movie.
So I just want to say off the top that obviously there's a lot of problems with this film. The plot is not developed. The whole thing falls apart in the second half into like a series of kind of manufactured emotional conflicts that don't feel earned. But I think the biggest problem is that this movie doesn't know who its protagonist is. Is it Searcher? Or is it Ethan? And if they just made a decision and stuck to it.
And there's no antagonist.
That I think that would have helped this plot. I don't necessarily know that you need an antagonist per se.
And that was an actual joke in the movie.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. When they're playing the game. He said there's no bad guys. That's just lazy writing. Like, wow.
Because if you think about Raya and the Last Dragon, ultimately, there's no real antagonist, right? Everybody kind of comes together at the end. There's a conflict, but there's not like a bad guy. They did it in that film and it worked. But here, I think the biggest problem is it just doesn't know who it wants to be the focus of this story. And because of that, it feels really disjointed. Searcher has a legitimate gripe with his dad who like literally walked off and left him.
Well, maybe he should have spent less time developing energy and gone to a therapist.
But the thing with Ethan feels really, really tacked on because it seems in the first half that they actually get along mostly. And that there's no reason for Ethan to like get upset at his dad.
Right. Yeah.
Because if you just talk to Searcher's the kind of dad who listens. Because as soon as Ethan says, this is the way I feel, he's like, oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
He doesn't like abandon him and walk away into the
all Ethan really has to say to him is, I'm not you. Okay.
Right. Yeah. And he's like, that's fine.
No conflict there.
So it does like they don't lay in a conflict between them, but then they try to have this huge emotional resolution moment, like I said, that's not earned because they didn't actually put it into the story.
No.
And it's so frustrating. What's supposed to be going on here? Like, am I supposed to be worried about Searcher's emotional resolution with his dad? Am I supposed to be?
And that's sure not going to resonate with a kid. The kid's never going to relate to a dad issue. And it's funny because when I came home, and of course, the first thing my wife always asked, well, how was the movie? That's a loaded question. The minute I walk in. And so we start talking about it, and I get fidgety because I do have issues with my father. And it became very clear that I understood what Searcher was kind of going through. And she's like, all right, just calm down. Stop. Just like, PTSD was kicking in. So, but you're right, though. The Ethan storyline, it's not earned because,
they don't develop it.
No, he's like, oh, I don't want to be a farmer. And it's like, okay. All right. Well, what do you want to do? It's like, I mean, the parents were very open with this kid. They weren't like closing him off.
I know. This kid is like in an idyllic lifestyle. There's no restrictions on this kid whatsoever.
So It goes back to the issue of Searcher, which is, he's like, oh, you want to be an explorer like him? He's a bad dad. It's like, all right, chill out, dude.
The plot of this movie, it's the Clades who live in this town called Avalonia. I thought it was Apollonia first. I'm like, Prince Apollonia? So it's this town that's cut off from everything else from this mountain range. And there's these explorers, these legendary explorers that live in the town, and the Clades. I'm like, if you can't go anywhere, what are you exploring in the first place? So that was question number one. Jaeger Clade is the father, and he's like the most famous explorer that's ever lived in Avalonia. And it's his mission to get over these mountains that cut this town off from the rest of the world. You don't even know if this is on Earth or where this is.
Well, that's the one thing we find out. It's not.
And his son, Searcher, by his name, you'd think that he was also an explorer.
Yeah, you're already giving this kid a hang up.
Yeah.
Like naming the kid Hoops.
At the beginning, they all take this mission to get over the mountains, and it's like going over Mount Everest. And before they even get close to going over the mountains, they find these weird plants. Searcher wants to stay and investigate the plants. Well, maybe this is our answer right here, what lies out there. And the explorer dad is having none of it. No, I must go on. And so he chooses to leave his family, everybody in the party, while the kid and everybody else looks into what this plan is. And flash forward 25 years later, the plant is a power source that they call Pando, which brings them into the modern age because apparently they had no power, no electricity.
Yeah, they were like a horse and buggy type of
So
society.
Now they're like a modern society 25 years later because of this discovery. And the kid has always had father issues. Searcher, who's now an adult with his own child, Ethan. And something's wrong with the Pando, though. It starts to die in various parts of Avalonia. So everybody's panicking that they won't have any power. So they go on a mission to try to fix whatever is wrong with the Pando.
And it's okay for that to be the central conflict. Because again, it's sort of like Raya and the Last Dragon where, this destructive force is kind of spreading over the land and they need to stop it. And that's enough of an antagonist, if you will. But the story is so disjointed and the characters just aren't really fully drawn. They feel like types. Like I was thinking especially of the mom who's like sort of the stereotypical, she's perfect mom, right? She does everything. She does it well. Her family is her life. Mm-hmm. And like, she's always understanding. She's always perfect. Never has any like real emotional dimensions. It just seems like they didn't start with character, which is where you should start for, I think, especially for an animated film. You have to make people care about these characters.
Yeah. I did read Don Hall had an interview on Hollywood Reporter, and he was talking about the fact he was a kid who grew up in Iowa of farmers, and the idea that he was expected to just be a farmer. And at some point he wanted to be an artist. He wanted to be a director. He wanted to be a creator. And that was where he drew inspiration for this stuff, which is fine. Like you said, it's a nice backbone, but the characters are absolutely completely throwaway. Like you're never going to see any kid dressing up as Searcher or Ethan for Halloween. I had to look up. I couldn't even remember the dog's name. Who thought a three-legged dog was funny, by the way?
I don't know. And the dog is like constantly in peril. Like, just take the dog off the deck. The dog clearly needs to be inside.
Can we get the dog off the deck? So you got to create conflict in order to bring the mom in, an issue. And it's like the pilot gets killed and nobody even mentions it or brings it up. Nobody cared that this guy died.
Right.
I didn't even realize that he died. I'm like, what happened to the pilot? And I didn't catch that he even died.
It's such a throwaway thing. It's just an excuse to get the mom on board to save the ship because she's a pilot. My original title to this was Journey to the Center of.
But the other thing that's happening here, and I have seen this in Disney films especially, but in a lot of animated films now, and I call it the Pixar effect. So many animated films now take themselves so seriously. What happened to making fun movies?
Fun.
I actually want to draw a parallel here because my favorite animated movie this year that was not Belle. I just, as the caveat, Belle was my favorite film that I saw this year.
There you go. Bring it up.
Was The Bad Guys. Did you guys watch The Bad Guys?
No, we haven't watched it.
Yeah, I saw it.
It's like, to me, it's like kind of the perfect family movie. It's fun. There's a little emotional, like dramatic conflict at the center of it, but it plays out really nicely. It doesn't suck all the air out of the movie. And at the end, like everybody walks away, feels like they had like a fun hour and a half,
Is that DreamWorks?
I believe so.
I think so.
I think it's Universal.
You're right, though. This takes itself very seriously.
But it's this trend that I've seen overall, and I feel like because Pixar has always made these films that have like these inherently dramatic core.
But they're still fun, the Pixar. They know how to balance it. They know how to balance it.
You have to look any further than Turning Red. That's a fun movie, but there's some pretty heady concepts going on there. Right.
But Disney animators seem to think now, and a lot of other animators too, just seem to think, well, the thing that makes Pixar movies good is that they have these serious topical issues in the center of them. But no, it's that Pixar knows how to write characters that people care about.
You're right.
Because they start from the character and then they develop the story around the character. I mean, look at Inside Out. Who knew that would work?
It's brilliant.
Right?
I know. I know that's on Jim's 5 bucket list. Right there.
Going into this, I looked at the runtime and I was like, because I knew it was going to be one of these movies that took itself so seriously, simply because of the fact that it's almost 2 hours. This movie's like an hour and 47
and
minutes
that's
long.
too bad because the exploring this world is what should be fun. And the best character is the grandfather is, what the hell was his name? See, I even forgot his name. Yeager. Played by Dennis Quaid. I didn't even realize it was Dennis Quaid. I'm like, was Nick Nolte not available?
Not to 100% laud Pixar. I had kind of the same issue with Lightyear as I did with this. Lightyear had other stuff going on. And I think if Lightyear was original IP, if they didn't use Buzz Lightyear as I think that would probably fall.
It would never work.
The same way that Strange World is at the box office, because kids don't want to see sci-fi event. They'd go see it like a live action if that's what they wanted to see, or a Marvel movie or a DC movie. That's not what you really want in your.
You're not there for the talking
Disney
robot
movie.
cat.
Yeah, you're not there for the 10 earnest father-son conversations on the deck of whatever this craft is.
It did go way too long. It was like, all right, just hug it out, dudes. Come on. So speaking of Lightyear, and I want to bring this up because it became very apparent to me in the theater. If people were upset about that innocuous little same-sex kiss in Lightyear, they are not going to be happy with this movie. Because we have an LGBTQ character, they play it straight. It's no big deal. And this boy has a crush on another boy. But I saw it firsthand with this dad and the little kid in front of me, and the dad really started squirming. And they got up, and then halfway through the movie, he got up, put his jacket on. They made it to the end of the aisle and then sat back down, but still left before the end of the movie. Listen, there's enough people out there screaming and crying that, this liberal agenda is being shoved down their throats. And it didn't make any difference to the character.
But that's how it should be. Honestly, it should just be treated like,
I agree with you, but there are people who are not as comfortable. I wouldn't even bring it up, but I saw it firsthand in front of me that this guy became very uncomfortable having to now answer questions from his 6-year-old son.
Well, I mean, don't get me started. Okay.
Yeah.
People are like, it's shoved in kids' faces. Well, those kids go to school with other kids who have two dads or two moms. It's not shoving in your faces. It's just the way people live. And it's
I agree with
frustrating.
you. I'm playing devil's advocate right now that this is one of the right wing is leaning into this and saying this is why this movie failed, because you are pushing an agenda. I just
on the flip side of that, I think that Ethan deserves better movie.
Absolutely.
Biracial gay kids exist in the world.
Right.
So biracial gay kids
and parents who actually get along with each other do exist.
Yes.
Their relationship was fantastic. And like you said, the conflict between Ethan and Searcher is forced.
It's non-existent because they get along. So if he just said to his dad, I really feel this way, I'm sure Searcher would have listened, because as soon as Ethan says the thing, he listens. Yeah. And that's what's frustrating about the construction of this movie, is because they want it to be some kind of big. I was like, am I supposed to be crying now? What are they trying to do?
There was no, as far as that goes, there was no emotional catharsis.
Well, that's another difference between this and a Pixar movie. Pixar doesn't have to pull the tears from you. They just free flow when you're watching a Pixar movie, because they know what buttons to press. Yeah. And this one doesn't.
No, and it's unfortunate. This could have been great. Visually, there's a lot of fun going on. I'm going to throw back Treasure Planet in Atlantis. Like I said, there's no Disney princess in this. When's the last time we saw a Disney movie that actually had a male protagonist? I love those movies, and they're leaning into that Jules Verne adventure stuff, and they could have had a lot of fun with it, and they did not.
Big Hero 6, right?
Hero 6, which Don Hall was attached to.
And that has a very strong dramatic conflict at the center, but it's also fun, and it has a lot of really good character development, and you care about those people, and it all seems to flow out naturally.
Something got lost in this. And even the big reveal at the end that, where they really are and what is going on, and that they are literally doing the wrong thing. While it's a neat reveal, it doesn't really bring anything. It's
revealed that the strange world that they're in and trying to fix this Pando problem. And of course, they find Jaeger under there, who's lost because he got lost on his way over the mountains. They all discover that they are inside the body of a huge creature, and that the Pando is actually killing it. And Avalonia, like Who's in Whoville, are living off the back of this thing. It looks like a turtle.
There's a couple of different cultures that kind of believe that, I guess, mythology of it.
Discworld. Do you guys know Discworld? Terry Pratchett?
Well, I'm going back even far. Hindu, China. I think it's Hindu. It's the 4 elephants propping up the earth on the back of a turtle.
That's Discworld.
Okay.
Well, you guys know Gamera.
Well, I was going to go Gamera, and it's a beautiful, it's a beautiful reveal. That you're just, but that also shows that they're just all alone. There's nothing on the other side of the mountain. Just a giant turtle in
a giant ocean. The turtle's floating in the ocean, apparently. And if it ever decides to take a swim, then they're done. They're absolutely
I guess he's
drowned.
just happy floating there, right? The great floods have not come yet. Yeah, I didn't even pick up that it was Jake Gyllenhaal as Searcher. Outside of Dennis Quaid, the voice acting was nothing to write home about. There was nothing crazy about it. Nobody stood out to me.
I think that reviewers feel exactly the same way. Variety says a relatively unimaginative story consigns this gorgeous tune to second tier status instead of cracking the pantheon of Disney classics. I think that's kind in a way, in a weird way. Washington Post says the visual beauty of the film isn't enough. Pretty is as pretty does. And in Strange World, pretty doesn't do much.
Wow. Yeah, that pretty much nail on the head.
Again, I think it's just got that same superficial issue where I don't think kids are going to bite just from looking at the trailer and plot alone. It's like, I'd rather stay home and watch Minions for the millionth time.
Yeah. I did find it fun, though, that Dennis Quaid, this is not the first time he's been inside a body, though, because he was also in inner space. Yeah, it's unfortunate. This is a big disappointment, because when I first saw this, I was very, very excited that this could have been something special.
So what kind of buckets are we giving out of 5 buckets?
I'm gonna give it an extra bucket just for the visual elements, 2 3/4.
You see, I will go to. I did appreciate the visual elements, but it wasn't enough. You know, again, I saw it all in the trailer.
Yeah.
It did give me a moment in the reveal, but I think that was just because we were covering Fantastic Voyage.
Voyage, right? Yeah.
2.5.
It's too bad.
There you have it.
It's too bad. Strange World.
So we're going to try something new this week. Talking about strange, rather than actually give you a little tease of what is in the concession stand, we're actually going to go ourselves and see what it is that we can get from the counter. And what better to start with than that perennial movie treat, popcorn.
Do I hear it popping as we speak?
That's what you hear, yes.
Is that what it is?
Now, you may ask yourself, and maybe you never have, just because it's just a given, that popcorn is what's on offer when you watch a movie. Even at home, it doesn't feel right to watch a movie without popcorn. Why? Why is it that we do this?
I
have the information.
Let's go.
You do? You do?
I do.
Good thing, because I have no idea.
I forgot we're doing this. It's all new to me.
And this is so appropriate for me to do this segment, because the steam-powered popcorn maker was invented in 1885 by Charles Creeder in Chicago.
Ooh, the Whirly Pop?
No. So the steam-powered popcorn maker is one of the reasons why we have popcorn in movie theaters. He modified a peanut roaster, a portable peanut roaster, in 1885. And then in 1893, he made various improvements on it to make it like just for popcorn. And that's really when these become very, very popular. It's because sellers have this mobile cart that they can take around, like to outdoor sporting events, to circuses, to fairs. They can pop the popcorn and sell it right there. Popcorn was really cheap to buy for the seller. It was also cheap to buy as a snack. So you could sell it at a profit, but still sell it relatively cheaply. He first rolled out the modified version of the popcorn maker at the World's Fair in 1893. He put up a sign that said free popcorn, and when the line started to form, he would flip it over and have the prices showing.
Oh, that's evil. Dude. Wow. False advertising.
How does popcorn end up in movie theaters? So when movie theaters were first built, they were these beautiful houses that had, curtains and nice seats, and they had carpets, and they wanted to attract like a really kind of upscale clientele. And they did not allow people to snack in their theaters because they didn't want,
Yeah, we see most people are pigs, so
right.
For some reason you don't want to
They
eat them.
didn't want food ground into the carpets, and they didn't want the snacking to distract from the film, because at this time they were silent films. So you would just have a musical accompaniment, and other than that, people would just be reading the cards. Now, when sound film comes around in 1927, the clientele of these theaters expands because you're no longer required to be literate to go to the movies. It's true.
Okay, all right. I don't think I've ever thought of it quite like that, but yeah, okay.
So by 1930, movie theater attendance expands to about 90 million people per week.
That's the magic of movies right there.
When they opened the box office back then, suddenly the sound of banjos fires up.
I was gonna say, apparently I'm an idiot because I like to eat popcorn in the theater.
During the Depression, movies were a cheap diversion, and smart mobile popcorn sellers would come and stand outside the theaters with their little carts and sell bags of popcorn before the show. But a lot of these theaters still had restrictions, and they would ask people to check their popcorn with their coats, but people were still kind of clandestinely bringing it into the theater.
All these years later, still sneaking food into the theater.
Yes. So as more and more people continued to do this, theaters started to realize, hey, maybe we should, cut out the middleman. So at first they started leasing lobby privileges to these vendors so they could bring their cart inside the lobby and sell directly to their clientele. And then during World War II, a lot of theaters start to realize that concession sales are actually the difference between profit and loss. And that is still true today, actually.
Yeah,
very much
so. Yeah.
The majority of profit at theaters is actually from concession sales. It's not from ticket sales. World War II really reinforces the relationship between theaters and popcorn because there are sugar shortages and rationing, and they can't sell candy or soda or anything sweet, really, because they don't have those things to sell in the theater.
Or nylons, by the way.
I don't think those are being sold at the concession stand.
What happened to all the monkeys that the organ grinders employed? Those poor little guys.
They're out of work. They're out of work. They're working for peanuts, not popcorn.
That's right. So by 1945, over half of the popcorn consumed in America is actually eaten at the movies. It's cheap. Again, like cheap for the seller, cheap for the buyer.
It's not cheap to buy it at the concession stand anymore. $8.99 for a bucket.
It smells enticing when you walk into the lobby.
It sounds enticing when you walk into the lobby.
Yeah. Well, you've been conditioned, right? You've been conditioned to that. You want to hear that. Yeah, how fresh is that popcorn? I want this.
Well, yeah, listen to what's underneath us right now, and I bet you want it. I bet you want it.
Oh, of course I do. And when the girl yesterday, she's like, I said, I need extra butter. She goes, would you like me to put that in layers? And I'm like, I had big hearts in my eyes, and I'm like, you get me. Yes. So
it's become inextricably linked with the movies. Like I said, concessions are still the biggest driver of profits, which is why the concession intermission bumper was invented. The famous "Let's all go to the lobby."
That's right.
Right.
I sang it wrong.
By the way, that was actually selected for preservation in the National Film Registry in 2000. So it's considered of cultural significance.
So now that I think about it, Regal is genius by removing the ticket counter up front and forcing you to go to the concession stand to buy your tickets, because now you can't just bypass it. And your kid is sitting there waiting to get a ticket. Well, while I'm sitting here, I am looking at that big, huge glass display of all those giant jujubes and goobers and Raisinets. Mom, can I get a box of Raisinets? Mom, there's a point where you can't say no.
They've just modernized themselves to be like any grocery store or department store. You've got to have stuff that tempts you as you're waiting to pay.
Have you ever gone to a theater that had do your own butter? Like they actually have like a butter station?
Yeah, ours does.
Does it?
Yeah.
Is that actually butter, though?
It's not.
No, it's not butter. It's
like oil
butter,
or something.
Yeah, it's butter-like substance.
I don't eat that because it makes my stomach upset.
Jeff, you got to stop. Jeff, you got to stop that.
It's not like I'm eating it every day.
You eat it a lot, though, because of this podcast. I will not be held responsible.
Hold on, we're sitting here promoting popcorn. We're praising popcorn as this great American treat, and now you're telling me I can't eat it, or I can't eat it the way I want to. What about?
I am never going to tell you that. I am never going to tell you that.
My Regal now offers the Cheeto dust.
Lots of people sneak. I sneak the grocery popcorn, which is not covered in butter, and I like to think is a little bit more healthy, because whenever I'm at the theater and I find myself without a snack in my pocket, and then I have to get the popcorn, even without butter, it's so salted with whatever they sprinkle on it, it hurts your lips and your mouth to eat it. So then
it forces you to drink
the $8 drink along with it.
That's also why they put out peanuts at a bar. You do realize that it's the salted up. So now you're thirsty. Now you got to drink more. You drink more, you eat more.
So the concession stand guy is just staring at us impassively right now. Are you done yet? Do you want to order something?
These guys behind us. I got the history of popcorn.
So Jeff, are you going to get double and triple layered butter today on your popcorn for Fantastic Voyage?
Yeah.
Oh,
and my giant frozen Coke.
I eat the popcorn, but I don't put the butter on it. I'm against the butter. By the way, the type of popcorn that they use in the theater, so there's two types of kernels. Like one of them like makes a white pop when it pops open, one of them makes a yellow pop. And theater owners actually started using the yellow pop ones because it looks like they have butter on it. It looks like it has butter on it, even when it doesn't.
They trained us.
Now, what size do we normally all get?
You really need to ask that. You do know there's a secret that you can get a free refill.
I get a small and I share it with my son because we each only eat.
But you can't press pause on the movie. I don't want to get up and leave and go all the way to the lobby and then walk all the way back. Sometimes it's like a mile.
No. You get a refill on your way out, so you have a bucket to take home.
What?
Yeah, and then
I think I'm done by that time. I'm like, it's past.
I put it in little Ziploc bags and I take it to work. And while I'm working, I can snack.
That is a movie enthusiast right there.
Damn straight. I'm paying $9 for a bucket. Come on, that's like 60 cents worth of popcorn right there. I'm getting my money's worth. Sorry, not sorry. How's that? I love my popcorn.
And as much as I like to think that I am a neat person, there is always popcorn all around me on the floor.
Oh yeah,
whenever
you can't
eat
in the dark. It's disgusting, bad. But at least a small popcorn, the small, because they come in bags. But if you're not eating the butter, then that's good, because if you get butter in a small, then it's just going to seep through that bag.
Do you have like a movie-going shirt that you've actually got the butter stains on? Because you're dropping that popcorn.
I'm pretty
sure
it's
absorbing
that
into that material.
Right now has butter stains on it from yesterday. Yeah, my Stitch shirt is not faring well. I should just have like a bib is what I should do. Like
I'm going to order a small, because everything in moderation for me. Like it's like a personal pie. I want a small popcorn, and then I'm done when I'm done.
I think there's some popcorn shaming going on right now.
The small costs like what, 50 cents less than the medium, and that costs 50 cents less than the large, which means the small is like $7, which is ridiculous. But that's where they get you. That's where they get you.
And now I want popcorn.
Yeah. All right, let's go back to the theater to sit down for Fantastic Voyage. I hope you've enjoyed our first visit to the snack bar. But of course, we have to start with the classic.
The kid behind the counter was not happy with us right now. All right. Fantastic Voyage.
Fantastic Voyage.
Let's go.
1966. Director, Richard Fleischer. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, this guy did. So he is like in the pantheon for me already, just seeing that. Yeah. Silent Green.
Ooh.
Conan the Destroyer, the sequel to Conan, the much maligned sequel that I still love to this day. Speaking of Conan, Regal is showing the original Conan the Barbarian in December, 2 nights only at Regal. I saw that trailer before.
I didn't see that.
I went to see next week's film early, so I got that one before. I did not get that before Strange World. Fair enough.
I'll look forward to that.
Fantastic Voyage came out in August of 1966. I don't know what the movie-going landscape was back then, but today, August is where the summer films go to die, where the ones that nobody really cares about are released in August. It's funny. It's not really a crawl. It's just a text that shows up at the beginning of the movie that basically says, yes, what you're about to see is patently ridiculous. But hey, just 10 years ago, going to the moon would have been patently ridiculous. So open your mind a little bit before this movie begins. Anybody that knows anything about the history of cinema will know, even if you've never seen this is the one where people shrink down and in a submarine go inside the human body. They actually, not officially, but loosely based a Disney ride off of this movie, which was called Body Wars, which is the same concept. And there's a Cold War plot going on here. This guy, this scientist, you never really know where he's from. I don't think that they ever explain.
No, you don't. In the movie, he's just got secrets he needs to get out. I actually thought at first that this was Donald Pleasance because I saw his name in the opening credits.
And his big bald head that they keep.
The Duke of New York, you're number one. But I will tell you, this opening credit, so there's no music. It's all like it's like Bionic Man. It's like really
bloops.
Sound
it's bloops and blips and like big close-ups of this guy's head.
So retro. It's gorgeous. It's fantastic. I absolutely. It's like all those old James Bond where the control tower. It's just a big, massive wall of reel-to-reel tapes and giant buttons and switches, and it's so glorious because it's so simplistic. It's fun.
This whole complex that they bring this doctor into, because this doctor, he's got the secrets to miniaturization in his head, in his very large head that they always keep doing a close-up of.
The one that looks like a Christmas ham.
He has the secret to this, but they have to send miniature people into him to get this secret out, in a manner of speaking, because you can only shrink down in this reality for 60 minutes exactly on the dot. And then suddenly you get bigger again. And this guy has the secret to doing it indefinitely, or for at least a longer period of time than 60 minutes.
So he's been injured in this very exciting chase shootout that happens.
Very exciting.
With no dialogue, by the way, with no dialogue.
At the beginning, and it's misleading, this very action-oriented opening, because after that sort of, bang, bang start, the momentum comes to a screeching halt as they spend almost 40 full minutes doing the 50s and 60s sci-fi educational exposition portion of the story,
and driving our golf carts through the office.
And they actually drive the golf carts into the office. It's not even like they stop the golf cart outside the door. It's like they jockey it so they can get inside the door.
At one point, they block the escalator. I'm like, that's an egress issue right there. What are you doing?
Where's the segways in this place?
So they explain the mission step by step.
Yeah.
They show the schematic of the body. They talk about all the potential dangers, which then this is what they're actually going to encounter in the story. So there's no surprise whatsoever.
No.
Yeah.
Then when they're done doing that takes about 20 minutes. I kept checking the time. Okay.
Oh no, boy.
Then they take the time to explain all the operational mechanics of the sub. Okay. Then
it's very important for later on. You need to understand this stuff.
I think there's probably a way to do this in a more
entertaining.
Well, look at how Jurassic Park dealt with the DNA.
Oh, they use cartoons.
Treated as a cartoon, right? Here you go. It's a Disney ride, and it tells you everything you need to know.
But they broke it down to 3 minutes. Not 32.
No, this is a lot going on. And at one point, when this guy, Dr. Grant, who they bring in, realizes what's going on. Oh, he's
not a doctor.
Oh, he's not a doctor.
He's like James Bond or something. Okay. He's like an agent.
Let's talk about this. Yeah, it's implied that he's like CIA or something. And I want to ask why MPs are saluting to a civilian. Okay, because he has no rank.
Yeah.
Because Bob did it first. I guess I better if Bob isn't saluting to this guy.
Maybe Bob knows who this guy is. I just love the fact he goes, but I don't want to be miniaturized. I'm like, you and me both, buddy. I don't know.
I don't want to be watching this movie.
And at one point when they're going through this whole thing, and again, it's all low tech. And I'm like, there's got to be a massive burial ground now with just millions of overhead projectors because they are obsolete. There's no reason to have an overhead projector in this world anymore.
This crossed my mind as well, what Christina was just saying, like all this exposition, like what are audiences doing in the theater while this is going on? But then I'm thinking to myself, well, sci-fi is not as mass marketed, I'm sure, back then as it is today. It was probably a very niche kind of a genre.
Oh, absolutely.
So you're getting like the real egghead type guys sitting in this movie who maybe are lapping this stuff up.
I actually was enjoying it.
Like sci-fi porn, for lack of a better,
like you said, this came out the same year as Star Trek. So that really is right. And before Star Trek, there wasn't really any sci-fi on television. I mean, you got Twilight Zone, which was more like fantasy stuff. It wasn't alien.
Yeah, but science fiction had existed in the movies.
Oh,
and
Asimov and whatnot. But they're trying to. It's science fact. They're trying to tell you that this technology exists, and they're trying to explain to you how these people are going to actually. I was
to
caught up
probably
in it.
get you over just like the ridiculousness of the whole conceit.
I was caught up in it. I enjoyed it. I don't know. Just seeing that TWA plane at the beginning, I'm like, wow, that's a throwback right there.
I know. Is Leo DiCaprio and Tom Hanks going to get off that thing?
Has anybody been to the new TWA hangar? There's a new pavilion in JFK. And it's all retro. It's all throwbacks to the 60s. They actually took one of their planes and turned it into a lounge. You can go out onto the tarmac and go inside the plane.
Speaking of like a display like that, this made me think of something I read about this movie, and I maybe would have been more interested in these long scenes if I knew this. Is that obviously they did a mock-up of the sub. Like some of these shots is a practical submarine. Yeah. But reading further, the sets that you see in the sub are actually in that mock-up. So they built it so you could take it apart, and they actually filmed those scenes in the sub.
Makes sense.
In the sub. So
they open up the door or whatever.
Exactly. Or they just pull it in half, and then they can, set the camera up in the front of it so that it looks like they're on the bridge, and they're actually in the bridge of that model.
That makes perfect
full-size
sense.
model.
But, it's 32 minutes before they're even being dropped into the injection fluid. And it's 38 minutes before they're actually injected. Okay.
Wow. You just broke.
It's like someone thought to themselves, how can I make this very exciting concept as unexciting as possible? Okay. All they needed to do is have like 10, 15 minutes of setup and jump into this film. And this would have been great, but even once they get into the body, they keep cutting away to show the people talking, outside, the military and the doctors and all the people who are waiting for them. It's like, are you trying to kill the momentum?
How is it that we have this technology that we can shrink these people and the ship down to microscopic size and inject them into somebody, but we can't communicate except for Morse code? And wouldn't microscopic fuel shrink as well? Like supposedly the fuel is already microscopic, but when we get to that size, now it's going to fill up the tank. But it's like, well, it would still be the same size as everything.
You mean the laws of physics would still apply?
Get into the idea that oxygen molecules, you wouldn't even be able to breathe.
Isaac Asimov was asked to write the novelization of this.
Yes, I did.
He had issues. So, not that I'm going to go back and read that book because I have no desire to, but apparently he faced a lot of these plot holes head on and fixed them in the book. Wow. And the movie never even addresses. So a couple of them are really glaring. But to get to some of the non-glaring plot issues, we have a very obvious Donald Pleasance, who is a villain in every single movie. And why should it be any different here? We think Duvall is the saboteur because he was unfriendly to me today, and he's very suspicious. And he's got this girl that he wants to bring. There's no room for a woman on it, and somebody just goes off on her because she's a woman. I'm like, why?
She has nothing to do on this ship, by the way. Like, she does nothing.
The reason why she's there, I think, is to get groped by every male member of the cast.
Oh my God.
Antibodies
Do you know the story
to her
of that?
body.
And those are the only places they grope, by the way.
The story is
her breasts.
That when they first filmed that, everybody went, because the director's like, all right, you got to tear the stuff off her, and they avoided the breasts, and that was the only thing left, so it looks like she's wearing a bikini. And he's like, no, you got to get it all off her. So they filmed it again. And of course, then they all went for the breasts. And finally, the director's like, all right, I just need to do this myself. You guys clearly don't understand what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, I think that's probably what he was shooting for. It's like, first I'm going to ask them to grab them. Then they are. And then I'm going to get to do it.
Like Christina said, there's this whole sequence where they shrink the ship down, but it's only shrunk it to a certain size. And then they got to shrink it again. And I'm like, boy, I really hope they're going to shrink that again, because that's going to hurt going in. But it's like, and now it's on the floor. It's microscopic on the floor, and they're rolling this card in. I'm like, shouldn't they have raised that platform before you accidentally run it over? Like, that would have just ended the movie right there. Mission aborted.
And talk about slow. The whole miniaturization process. That one guy with the white glove was like, come on. To the projector, like, come on, slower, come on.
But then there's other people with no gloves on. And I'm like, should we all be wearing gloves here?
And then they actually get into the body. Eventually they do get into the body. So the whole thing is like the injection point is in the neck, and that's where they're going to extract them. And they're like, okay, we have it all planned out. We're going to go from point A to point B, then we're going to get the clot, then we're going to go out of point A again. And of course, that's not how any of it works.
But even that doesn't make any sense because they end up coming out the tear ducts. And I'm like, why didn't you just inject them right where the clot was to begin with? Why do you have to? Are you getting frequent flyer miles? Like,
apparently they didn't need the submarine.
Right. That's the other thing, dude. I could have just injected them like that to begin with. We could have saved a lot of money and not made a submarine. Jim, you keep cutting back to the guy's head. And at this point, they've got all these grid marks drawn on him. And he just looks like a Christmas ham. He's just missing some cloves out there.
All that we were missing, like Christina said, they keep coming back to outside the body. I kept expecting to see Willy Wonka in a white coat and an Oompa Loompa on the side.
That's the other thing. It's like the doctor is like constantly making like these ponderous, like, look at the majesty of the world kind of statements. And again, it's like everything just feels like it has no urgency. Like the whole thing is that they only have 60 minutes.
60 minutes, yeah.
They have to get this clot out of his
Did you actually
head.
time it when they went in?
Apparently it's in real time once they go into the body. Yeah.
It is. But that's what I mean. Like, which is fine. That's a fine conceit if you want to make it the actual 60 minutes.
Right.
But there doesn't feel like there's any urgency, even when there's something urgent happening. Even the way that they talk to each other, it's like, do you realize you're like in mortal peril?
You're on a very specific timeline here.
No time to.
And they never even attempt to make Duvall look guilty, like he is the saboteur.
Yeah,
because he doesn't do anything suspicious, really. Once you're in the sub, it's all Donald Pleasance.
Well, meanwhile, he's like sweating profusely, and he's like, "Oh, I'm claustrophobic." You think you should have brought that up before we put you in the submarine? Like, you bring that up now, and I can't swim.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
And I love how, again, going back to the guy with the white glove who slowly motions the projector over, how he looks at them inside once he's giant, with his big eye. If I was that guy, I'd be very tempted to do like a fake Godzilla stomp around the.
Well, even when they make it into the ear canal and they're like, all right, everyone's got to be really quiet. Just put a noise canceling earplug in the guy's ear. Let them do their thing. And what does this guy do when he wakes up? And he realizes what they did to him. Wait, you did what? And there's still somebody in there? What the? I would not be happy.
But they never even have like a crawl that says that, okay, the guy woke up and they got the information now, right?
Nothing.
The whole reason why they were doing this in the first place.
5 went in, 4 came out. And the sub's still in there.
Right. And that's the thing,
I hope that miniaturization does not wear off. That would be brutal.
The white cell eats up Donald Pleasance, and then supposedly it eats up the miniaturized sub, but there's still like junk in there. Like it's gonna come back to normal size.
That was an Asimov critique.
The blood, right? He doesn't die from the blood clot. He now dies.
So he wrote in because he had to write based on the script treatment, right? He had to write this book, which came out 6 months earlier than the movie. So a lot of people thought that the movie was based on his book that he came up with, but of course not the case. But he rose the argument, like, I'm not writing this unless I fix some of these plot holes. And one of them was leaving the sub in the guy's head. So he made it so the white blood cell was chasing them as they went to the duct. And when it was chasing them, it was kind of towing the sub. So the debris of the sub ended up coming out with them because, as you said, that's just going to get bigger and explode the guy from the inside. Like scanners, right?
I was gonna say, if anybody's watched a couple episodes of The Boys, that doesn't go so well.
So there's some issues. There are some plausibility issues here, to say the least. There are some nice things, like Strange World. There are some nice things to look at. There's some impressive sets and matte painting.
For 60s, it's pretty impressive technology. It's
cool. When the guy goes in the lungs and you see it restricted.
Looks like tripe. It just looks like tripe hanging around. Yeah, I don't know. I enjoyed it. It was cheesy fun for me.
It was colorful. It was very colorful.
Yes, I did pick up the DVD from my library, but I did watch it on HBO Max, and it is pretty cleaned up. It looks nice. You don't see those wires holding them up.
And I did like when, like as Christina mentioned, the white blood cell eats Donald Pleasance's head.
Yes.
So it
Well,
was
we're
like
all happy to see him go.
it was like from the Blob. It was like right out of there. I'm trying to remember now what I gave. I think I only gave 2 buckets to Strange World. I think I'm going to go marginally more with this one, just because of the novelty of the 60s sets and what I think I'm going to go 2.5 buckets with Fantastic Voyage.
Not much higher. I'm going to go 3.5. I had fun.
3.5.
I went 3.5.
Wow.
I probably have not seen this since I was a little tiny kid. Well, as I mentioned, I watched both these movies back to back yesterday, and coming off Strange World, I was like, this is brilliant compared to Strange World. I did see that numerous directors have been attached to a remake on this over the years, but nothing's ever come of it. I mean, you're talking about Cameron, Roland Emmerich, and Guillermo del Toro.
All right, Christina, what do you got? What buckets do you have?
Yeah, 2.5 is
she mentioned you.
fine. The special effects look good. I mean, I wouldn't denigrate this movie because of that. It's the pacing I have an issue with.
I guess I was willing to watch paint dry.
It just seems like a lot. Like there's always, like I said, in these 50s and 60s sci-fi films, there's always that kind of expositional period of the film. Like if you remember in Them, there's a period when the scientist comes into the room and but it's only like 5 minutes. It's not
40
minutes long.
Wait, let's get in our little golf cart and drive to the other conference room.
It was not a hit when it was released in August of 1966. It cost $5 million to make. And apparently, after all the merchandising and what have you, it would have needed to have made $9 million in order to turn a profit. I think from what I was reading, the initial release brought back in $8 million. So eventually, it did make its money back with TV showings and home video. So at the moment, it's showing a profit, but at the time, it did not show a profit. It took many decades, I think, in order for it to show a profit.
I was actually curious, who are they trying to sell this to at that time? And the films that came out in 1966, I've seen 2 conflicting sets of numbers, but either the top movie was Hawaii, which was based on the James Michener novel, or it was the Bible, depending on which list you look at. But those were the top 2. The third film was Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, which was based on a play. And then the fourth film was The Sand Pebbles. And then I looked at what else came out that year. Right, Man for All Seasons is 5. That actually ends up winning Best Picture at the Oscars that year. There's no science fiction really in the top 10. Fantastic Voyage comes in at 19 overall for the year. But there's a ton of memorable films from 1966 that appear to have made basically no money, because Good, the Bad, and the Ugly comes out that year. Blow Up comes out that year. El Dorado comes out that year. None of these films are in the top 10 or the top 20. So I don't know who was going to the movies. Yeah, it's just weird. Gosh, I'm looking at the top 5. Who watches the Bible now? Or Hawaii. Those are the biggest movies of the year.
I heard the book was better on the Bible, by the way.
The strangest thing about this is that they were considering this to be part of the In Like Flint series. So this was going to be James Coburn as Grant, and it was going to be part of that series. And I think that would have been much more entertaining than what we got. That would have
been fun. I enjoyed it. We'll check it out. It's free on HBO Max. Go check it out.
You could probably skim it.
Just fast forward through the first 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, watch the first 5 minutes, fast forward 40 minutes, and then watch the end.
Yep. There you go.
All right. So this wasn't exactly a Christmas episode.
No.
And next week won't exactly be a Christmas episode either. It's going to be an off-kilter Christmas episode, though.
Nice. I can't believe you already saw that.
I already saw it.
That's awesome.
I'll have to wait a week to talk about it. We are talking about, I think, the only major film that's Christmas-based that's in theaters right now, Violent Night.
Ooh. I am actually very excited for this.
With Red Guardian, David Harbour.
It was Hellboy, too.
He was Hellboy, too.
What's his name on Stranger Things?
Hopper.
Hopper. Okay. And the ref. This is why do I think that Cher was in this?
Cher is not in this.
Cher is not in this. This is
No.
Dennis
Cher.
Dennis Leary.
Dennis Leary.
And Kevin
Spacey.
Kevin Spacey. There you go.
Mhm.
Yeah. I came prepared. Yeah, I don't know.
Mhm.
Are we not doing what else did we do this week? Because I actually watched a third movie yesterday.
All right.
Oh, you did? All right, let's hit it.
I want to talk about this because if you thought I was excited about Fantastic Voyage, Netflix just dropped a Norwegian movie called Troll.
Troll, not Troll Hunter. I love Troll.
No,
Hunter.
Yeah, I thought
Troll Hunter is
when-
more like a found footage type of thing. This
Yeah.
is straight up Godzilla. There's a lot of Jurassic Park references, Cloverfield. It's just a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this, and this kept me awake until well after midnight last night. And it's just a giant rock troll. And if anybody knows Norwegian culture and mythology, trolls are big rock monsters, and one is on the loose. It's fun. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. And the special effects are pretty impressive. And obviously they set it up, spoiler alert, for a potential sequel, as all movies do now. So just dropped on Netflix. It's number one this week at Netflix. I just stumbled across it and I really enjoyed it. So check it out.
I'll have to do that.
What
No one else
did you,
did
Jim?
anything?
Well, the only thing of note I did was go to see next week's movie, which we
Oh.
will not
You
speak
can't
of
talk
right
about
now.
that. You cannot
Okay.
talk about
Yeah, I did not do too much this week myself because I'm trying to, finish writing a whole book. And at the end of the day, my brain cannot comprehend anything. So Friday night, we do pizza movie night every Friday night, and we take turns picking a movie. And my son was like, let's just pick a movie that none of us have to think about. And we watched
Strange
the
World.
latest Minions movie.
Oh, see,
Which,
there you go. You'd rather watch Minions than Strange World.
and I was like, you know what? This is perfect. I laughed. You know what I mean? The thing is, they understand their formula. They understand what kids want to see. They understand, like, they want to see stupid physical comedy,
Slapstick, yeah.
and there's, some funny one-liners that are for the adults. And it's like the perfect thing, like put your brain in park and just enjoy yourself for an hour and a half. And this is why the Minions movies made $1 gazillion and Strange World didn't. The movies are fun.
Well, right. And Despicable Me is a fun movie. It's well made. And you
Right,
care
I
about
mean,
the characters. So.
But now this is like what, the 5th movie in this
Yeah, well,
franchise?
it's a whole franchise now. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're completely marketable. Listen, who doesn't want a little minion stuffed animal?
Yeah, and I haven't seen it yet, but my son did. He went with one of his friends to go see it in the theater.
Is this the Rise of Gru?
The Rise of Gru. So it's
Okay.
Gru as a kid in the Minions movie, which was didn't have Gru until the very, very end.
Right.
That took place in the 60s. So I can only assume this is like in the 70s.
It is in the 70s. There's
Yeah.
a ton of disco.
Nice.
There's a ton of disco.
Nice.
It's
A period piece.
it is stupid. It is fun. I really appreciated it, especially because, I woke up in the middle of the night the other night and my brain had ejected out like the last 3 scenes of the book, in the middle of the night. And I'm just like, can we do this when we're awake?
Wow. Do you have a notepad? Do you have something to like jot that stuff down?
No, I won't forget it once it comes.
Oh,
once
I don't
it-
know. I've had some great ideas in my sleep and I wake
Mm-mm.
up going, son of a.
I never forget like
Okay.
stuff like that. Once it migrates from like sort of the back of the brain to the front of the brain,
Mhm.
then it stays there. But
Like a microscopic sub.
yes,
Okay.
but it's very, I'm an extremely half-assed writer. I actually do very little active thinking about my books. A lot of the work does get done kind of in the back of my brain, and then I sit down and I'm like, oh,
It just spews out.
okay, that's interesting.
Who thought of that? I guess I did.
I know.
Nice.
I'm rereading the book. I was rereading the front half of the book, just to do some light edits before I sent it on. And I'm like, it's pretty good. I'm
Wow,
always,
found myself on the back.
no. It's more like I'm always surprised that it's coherent,
Okay, gotcha.
because I don't really think about it in a conscious way, but I was just like, oh, 2 a.m. Like,
Any
and then
chance you snuck a minion in there?
No, there's no minions.
No.
Yeah. That was the perfect movie to watch. That's the perfect movie to watch when you're so tired and like wrung out. You just feel like you can't like concentrate on a plot because like there's no plot to speak of, But
wait, what's their motivation again? Wait, what? Yeah. Very cool. All right. Well, I'm very excited for Violent Night.
I'm very excited to do it for our annual rewatch of The Ref. We watch this movie every year.
I'm gonna say I have probably never seen it.
And I think I've seen it upon its release, not in the theater, but probably on home video. But it's been a long time.
I'll be picking up from my
long
library
time
as soon as we're done here.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, that was fun. That was fantastic and strange.
Good job, Jeff.
You like that? Wow, 2 adjectives.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Thank
See
you.
Next week.
Bye.
Hey, everybody. If you like what you just heard, be sure to follow TMI Confessionals of the Nerd Kind on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or whatever you listen to your favorite podcasts on. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and then share it with your fellow movie nerd friends. It means the world to us and helps our listenership grow.
You can also find us on all of the socials, Instagram and Twitter at TMI_podcast 2018. We're on Facebook and YouTube as well. Just look for the Popcorn Bucket.
You can help support this show by visiting our TeePublic page for some TMI branded goodies such as hoodies, t-shirts, mugs, and stickers. TeePublic.com/TMI Confessionals, all one word.
A 5-star review would be incredibly nice as well. I'm just saying.
Thanks again for listening. We truly appreciate you. Be sure to come back next week. We'll save some popcorn for you.
Can we get the dog off the deck?